Hi, everybody. My name is Olivia. I might look a little familiar to you because I helped lead one of the aquatics workshops already for the Envirothon this year, but I'm really excited to be back now to talk to you guys about how to engage the community in reducing non-point source pollution. So we'll get started. Introducing myself a little bit more formally, my name is Olivia DiPalermo. I'm the Watershed Programs Manager for the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition. We're a nonprofit watershed conservation group in Western Connecticut, helping to protect rivers and groundwater in our watershed communities, which includes Woodbury, Southbury, and Bethlehem, and the surrounding areas. So shout out if we've got anybody coming from there. And that's how to contact me. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions about the presentation, about outreach in general. And again, I'll put this up at the end in case anybody is looking to reach out. So just a brief agenda of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to get into why outreach is important and why it's specifically important for reducing non-point source pollution. I feel it is actually a necessary part of reducing non-point source pollution on a large scale. We're going to get into different forms of outreach and education. It can take many, many forms, and there's often different forms being used simultaneously. We'll get into that and how you go about selecting what forms to use. We're going to talk about some resources you can link to in your education and outreach campaigns. Then we're going to get into education through action. These are ways that you can actually actively engage people in non-point source pollution through things like workshops or hands-on conservation projects, building rain gardens, riparian buffers, things like that. We're going to finish up with how to evaluate your impact to tell, was your outreach effective in reducing non-point source pollution in your community? And then again, we can't really open it up for questions, but I will put my contact information back at the end in case anybody has any questions. So why is outreach important? And why is it important for reducing non-point source pollution? So as you likely know by now, non-point source pollution is a collective problem. It is no longer just one polluter, and therefore there can't just be one person, as much as we'd love to, that is going to fix the entire problem. We need a collective solution, and outreach is that collective solution. With outreach, you reach not just the people that you're directly talking to, but the people in their life and their community that they're going to then go on and educate as well. So each person you educate, this is why outreach is really significant, education is really significant, they can go out and not only just educate their friends and neighbors, but help mobilize volunteers, gather supplies. They're going to be the people that are going to help you minimize pushback when you go to put a conservation project in place or a conservation policy in place. They can do things like submitting public comments, appearing at public meetings, meeting with lawmakers, meeting with your municipal leaders. They can help leverage their personal and their professional connections to secure resources for your project, to get those plants for your riparian buffer, to help get those rain barrel kits, to get printing supplies, and things like that. So again, really, really, really important that we involve all people in a community because this is an issue that's affecting everyone and being caused by everyone. So it's going to be solved by everyone. Another way that outreach is really important in reducing non-point source pollution is that it empowers individuals to make change. So what you're doing is essentially creating opportunities for people to connect with their natural resources, which develops a bond between the person and their environment, which makes them more invested in protecting it. If people are disconnected from their environment, they're not going to feel like they have any power to make change. A lot of people care about the environment a lot, but they don't know how to help. And they're also unaware of certain, what they consider to be regular activities, things like salting your driveway or putting fertilizer on your lawn that are really having very serious negative impacts on their waterways. Many people feel frustrated about a number of different issues related to the environment, but this is something that they can really make a tangible change, and that's why it's really powerful. People respond very well to household conservation tips, in my experience. So what you're doing with this outreach is giving people not just information about the problem, about what's causing non-point source pollution. I mean, obviously very important, but also you're following it up with tools that people can use to help shape their community. And that's why this is so powerful, outreach in this context. And I have some photos down there that kind of illustrate this. This is, People are making rain barrels, collecting that water that's coming off their roof. People can go out and put storm drain markers, telling people about the connections between communities that might seem disconnected from water, but are actually directly connected through things like storm drains. Educating youth, and then involving people on tangible conservation projects where they really feel like I'm doing something and I'm having an impact. And lastly, outreach allows for effective and equitable approaches. Members of the community can provide really diverse insight and contribute hyper-local historic knowledge. A lot of people that you're gonna, talk to in the community, they live there their entire lives. They know everything. They know what's worked, what hasn't worked, what's not working, and they're gonna be your best source of information about what things that the community can do to help. Getting people on board, again, is going to help create policies and projects that reflect and support their community. Having a project that is in, largely supported by the community, that project's going to outlive the people who started it, and it's going to get passed down. Because it's helping to uplift that community. It's supported by the community's invested in it, and it's going to go much farther than something that, only a couple people really feel invested in. This is where youth education is extremely important, because young people are going to be tasked with caring for the environment and shaping the future of our communities and natural spaces. Involving young people in these conversations and in this outreach is very effective, even if they aren't, homeowners. Getting that education to them of things that they can do in their life to make change is incredibly effective. And maintaining a dialogue with the community during a project or during the course of an educational campaign, continuing that education of and that conversation of, well, what do you need? What are some issues you're facing? What are obstacles you're facing? And how can we make an approach, a large scale effort that represents the people in the community, uplifts the people in the community, and that will really have a collective support for a long time. And inversely, I wanted to touch just on what happens when you don't employ outreach. This is where you get pushback, you get delays. If people are not understanding the project, they don't understand why. One, they don't understand the issue. Then they don't understand why are their resources, their tax, dollars, their time and municipal resources being put toward this project instead of as something else. And then also they don't understand what's the point. What is the end goal? And it can be really powerful just talking to someone and saying, hey, here's the issue. This is why we're doing what we're doing. Being really transparent. It's going to minimize a lot of pushback when you go to do on the grounds projects and when you go to pass policies. Again, without outreach, you can really develop a very negative relationship between stakeholders. Stakeholders meaning, town representatives or even environmental groups with the people that live in the community. If they don't feel like they're part of the project, it can feel like it's being pushed on them. And even if it is beneficial in the end, it's not reflecting the community and it's not going to be successful. Again, you don't want to have a disconnection between the community and their natural resources. The whole point of the outreach is to really show people and to allow people to be connected with the resources and be active in making the change. This can avoid inequity, and it can also avoid unsustainable development and environmental degradation down the line. So again, outreach is an essential part of reducing non-point source pollution because it allows for the creation of projects and policies that are backed by the community and also reflect the communities and uplift the communities that they serve. So outreach and education, as I mentioned before, can come in a number of different forms, and often they're used simultaneously. This can come in meetings. We love a good meeting, don't we? We all love a good meeting. This can be a small meeting with stakeholders, again, key individuals that are really going to be essential for supporting a project or a campaign or, things like that. That can be, members of your town. That can be key groups, other environmental organizations, a gardening club, people who are really going to be effective in continuing and magnifying the education and outreach associated with reducing non-point source pollution. You can also have very large meetings. Typically, you want to have a mix of both. You can have very large meetings with the public, just generally discussing the topic of non-point source pollution, the causes of it, proposed projects when you get to that point where you're looking to put in a riparian buffer, you're looking to put in a rain garden, you have a large public meeting. Hey, guys, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. What impacts is this going to have on you? Share some ways that you feel we could adjust this project to better reflect your concerns and that of the whole community. You can send out some surveys. These can come in online surveys, paper surveys. There's a great example there of a survey we sent out recently, trying to get an idea of what people think about the water in their community. How connected do they feel? What are their concerns? What pollutants do they know about? Do they know about what actions they're doing? And just for you to get a sense of the behaviors and the ideas, because that's going to help guide what kind of outreach. If people are already aware of an issue, but not aware of another one, you can help guide outreach in different areas. Mailed resources. People are inundated with emails. I know I have thousands and thousands of emails. They get missed. People really respond well to mailed resources these days. I mean, I know I get excited. I'm like, wow, I got a letter, and even better, like handwritten one. People are more likely to open that. They're like, wow, this is cool. I like that. I'm actually getting something physical I can look at. Tabling, meeting people where they are. Outreach is all about going out. You go to local events. You go to high traffic areas, outside stores, and where the people are. You go into schools. Social media campaigns. This is great for reaching a lot of young people. But also, so there are a lot of older people like on Facebook right now, and that can be things, through posts. You can do a series of posts. You can do trends. You can get on TikTok. You do TikTok trends. You can have hashtags. Just anything to really just generate some momentum. You share it in community groups, and you reach a whole host of people fairly easily. Permanent or temporary signage. This can come, in many forms, but permanent signage can be installed at conservation sites where you have a rain garden or a riparian buffer, or during it, where people are coming by, at a public park, and what is this? Oh, it just looks like a garden. No, actually, this is a way to help prevent waterway pollution, and this is how it works, and this is the intent, and this is who's taking care of it. Can be really, really impactful. People stop and they read the signs. And this can also be in flyers. You go around, you put flyers up around the community. They might not last really long, but you stick them up there, and, some people see them. And that's a great form of outreach. Another one is merch. People don't think a lot about merch, but get a slogan, t-shirts, bumper stickers. We've got magnets here, pledge cards, things like that. Merch can be really a very fun way to involve people in an education outreach campaign. You think Smokey the Bear, you've got like an icon, you got a slogan. That's education, that's outreach in a way that can be really fun. And then lastly, peer-to-peer. I mean, it's classic. You're going out and you're talking to the people that already know you, that have an investment in you. And this is how a lot of educational groups and campaigns start. It's just going to your friends and neighbors and saying, hey, this is something I care about a lot. You want to join in, you want to learn about it, you want to help me share this with other people. And of course, the images over here just reflect that. We've got one of our board members talking to a member of the community at Woodbury Earth Day. We've got me giving a presentation in the library, giving a presentation outside, really just meeting the people where they are already. And tailoring your outreach effectively. Again, here's some more examples. This is a great guide we sent out, all about different ways to reduce non-point source pollution. It was about a 12-page guide, and we mailed it to every riparian landowner, riparian meaning near a waterway. So every person that lived along a waterway in our watershed, we sent them one of these guides. And it talked all about, how to reduce your fertilizer use, how to reduce your salt use, how to create areas to infiltrate water and change household habits. And we got a great response from it. We connected with a lot of new people, a lot of people who were not aware. And it was really effective. But again, obviously you have to consider the costs and your budget and things like that. But mailed resources and thick mailed resources, guides, magazines can be really effective. And storm drain markers. We've installed thousands of storm drain markers, telling people that even though you don't live near a waterway, you don't see one, it's connected. Those storm drains discharge directly into nearby rivers and streams. Getting that, that connection, mental connection between what I'm doing here is affecting what's happening, even if I can't see it. These are the pledge cards we're talking about. We have them as stickers. We have them as magnets. What activities are you doing to help protect your water? You check them off. Here's one of our no mow signs. This is kind of the early stages of a riparian or streamside vegetated buffer, that we create to trap, infiltrate water. We put up these permanent signs, telling people, hey, this is not just an unkept area. A lot of people who are not familiar with riparian buffers can be like, oh, why? It looks very wild. It looks very unkept. It's essential for protecting that water body, and here's why, and here's the function of it, and here's who's taking care of it. You got any questions? Here's who to reach out to. And then lastly, here's some I like to call semi-permanent signs that we put up to help educate about pet waste. Not just, the health impacts. Obviously, you want to pick up your pet waste, but also the impacts to waterways. People don't think about where things go, and it's really about making that connection in their minds. So how do you choose your approach? I just shared a ton of different resources and approaches to outreach. There's so many. How do you go about choosing it? Well, first you got to see what is your audience. Who are you looking to get? And you really should be looking to get everybody. How do you tailor your outreach in different ways to reach all these different groups? Maybe you'll say, okay, we're going to do a mailer, right? And reach homeowners. Typically, you're going to reach an older crowd, property owners, with those kinds of resources. But then how do we reach young people? Maybe we'll do a simultaneous social media campaign using the same educational materials, just in different forms, in different places. I really like this picture. This one on the top here, those are my interns, Erin and Nora. They're using two forms of outreach simultaneously in the same place right here. So this is at the Green Corn Festival in Woodbury. We've got Erin at the table, and she's talking to an older homeowner, providing physical copies of our mailer, of different pamphlets, speaking about different things that they can do to reduce non-point source pollution. And then we have Nora, who's talking to a family here. You've got a number of young kids. They learn in a different way. Kids want to be more engaged. They need more hands-on. They learn better that way. They're talking about the same thing, but in two different ways to two different groups of people. And both are equally effective in communicating the same message. You also, in addition, want to think about, how am I making this more accessible? The problem is that sometimes outreach can be a barrier, depending on how you go about it. You want to think about, am I hosting workshops and presentations in places that people can access easily? We really try to prioritize that when we do presentations. We have them in ADA accessible areas, free community spaces, no paywalls, places that often have transportation assistance to and from, and places where people already are and can access easily. Those that are like schools, libraries, senior centers. And hosting many of the same presentations multiple times at different times. You get people that work. Maybe you have, your senior center presentation in the middle of a weekday, and then you have one on a weeknight, or you have one on a Saturday. You have, you really have to find where the people are and push and push and make sure that your message is getting to everyone, and is really accessible to everyone. Having your resources in multiple formats, having them in paper, having them electronically, and then making sure that your resources are not prohibitive. You're having colorblind friendly resources, something a lot of people don't think about. Having dyslexic friendly fonts. If people are having a hard time seeing or reading your message, it's not going through. Writing out written image descriptions. making sure that your resources are accessibility feature compatible. This is something that I encountered very early on where I was screenshotting text and putting it into emails. And it wouldn't work when people went to use text to speech. And that was something I didn't realize right away. And my colleague mentioned, "Hey, Olivia, you need to type it out so that way people can use those features." And I was like, wow, that's, amazing. You could accidentally be creating barriers for people and not realize. So just really taking a step back once you select your form of outreach and saying, how do I want to go about this in the best way possible? And effective outreach is dynamic. It's multifaceted. You're in many places, you're in many forms, and you're using them all simultaneously. Especially, you have to consider your capacity, of course, but you want to make sure that you are reaching everybody in a community because, again, non-point source pollution is a collective community issue. Everybody is contributing to this in some way, whether they're aware of it or not, and you need to do your best to try to reach them. And that's what that lower picture is there. That's actually some of our board members and stakeholders. We had a meeting recently to discuss our outreach and how we can better reach different groups that we're not reaching as effectively through our current means. So existing resources. This is great. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are so many great free resources on non-point source pollution. This is a topic there's so much information on. There's information on specific types of non-point source pollution. So on the right there, I have some resources from the IWLA, which is the Isaac Walton League of America, their Salt Watch program, which talks about responsible salting and how to reduce waterway contamination in the winter. Very relevant right now. And then on the left there, we have River Smart, which, I don't want to be biased because our organization is a part of the River Smart partnership. But these resources are so great, and they're free and they're available. I really encourage you to check them out and see what you can use. And when you're doing your education, your outreach, you can link to these resources that already exist. Oops. And lastly, the doers, right? Not everybody loves a meeting or learns best in a standard educational setting. Not everyone wants to sit in a presentation or really has the capacity to or the time to. They want to be engaged, they want to be involved, they want to get out and combine, their recreational activities or their, leisure activities with effective change. So, they're like, oh, I want to be outside this weekend. I'm gonna, I was thinking about gardening anyway. Well, now you can help plant a riparian buffer. It's meeting people where they're at and where they want to be, and where they feel they're most effective. A lot of people don't feel very effective in meetings or at presentations. So we can use action-based outreach activities to engage those people who learn best by doing. Volunteer opportunities are great for this, and they build a really powerful and tangible connection. People can physically see, I planted this plant. I collected this data. I did this. It's showing me it's tangible. I'm doing something. I'm having an impact. And the result is that they have a greater personal investment in the issue. I've seen this. People come out volunteer sampling with us. They're not really aware of an issue and they leave and they feel like, wow, I know so much about this and I really need to share this with other people. I need to get on this. I need to figure out how I'm going to reduce this issue in my community. They feel like a whole new world has been opened up. And this is also a really effective way to translate outreach, verbal outreach or written outreach, into action, right? To make that bridge. They bring that activity home with them. They plant a riparian buffer, then they go home and they say, well, I have a pond. Maybe I should do the same here. And it can come in many forms, as I mentioned. You have installation of on-the-ground pollution reduction projects, your rain gardens, your riparian buffers. This can also be long-term maintenance. These individuals are really effective at making sure your project outlives the people who started it. I mean, you're going to need somebody to be maintaining that. And it's an opportunity for continuous outreach, right? Beyond the project. Oh, we did this project, but now in years to come, we can have continuous engagement with the project by having people come out and maintain it and weed and mulch and do all the things. That can be volunteer water quality monitoring, as I mentioned, helping people to physically collect samples of water. And that's, we have our volunteers down right there. They're looking at They're taking a temperature reading there, but they were bacteria nitrate monitoring, looking at the impacts of agriculture, of you know, use of different chemicals and things on private property. And then lastly, hands-on workshops. This is people are actually creating something, building something, maybe even bringing something home with them. That can be like a rain barrel, right, to collect that runoff from their roof. That can be them planting seeds and growing a native plant for a riparian buffer. And these are great opportunities to engage people that may not even be thinking about non-point source pollution. You have someone who's like, okay, I need service hours, right? Or, oh, I really like gardening. Or people who aren't even coming to this thinking about that. This is an opportunity for you to explain how this activity connects and helps reduce non-point source pollution. And also to have projects at sites where there are existing projects happening or existing things happening, where there's a sign, pointed out, oh, hey, I know we're doing this project over here, but you see that over there? That's a riparian buffer. Are you familiar with what that is? Are you familiar with what that does? And then explaining and connecting after you've done the work. Hey guys, amazing work today. This is what we did. This is what your impact is. And people leave feeling significant and feeling empowered, and they want to do it again, and they want to bring their friends. And we've seen it. I've seen it happen. People come to one thing, and next time they bring their friend, they bring their partner, they bring their family. And they're like, hey, I feel really empowered to do this, not just here, but now I'm going to go and, this group is doing the similar project, or I'm going to go home and I'm going to do it. And this is a really, as I said earlier, a powerful way to translate outreach into action and get people to actually make the change that is going to help improve the overall community issue of non-point source pollution. And lastly, I think it's really important to build in a step when you're doing an outreach campaign or an education campaign. Build in a step and not just say, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this, but say at the end, we're going to evaluate our impact. How? We're going to see if our outreach was equitable. Did it reach all the people? Did it create barriers for people? How are you going to figure that out if you don't take a step back and see, is what I'm doing working? How can you do that? There's a lot of data to be collected, actually, from outreach activities. So this is things like, this is things like your social media metrics, your clicks, your likes, your shares. And you can find all that information through social media. If you have, you create a business account, an organizational account. This can be QR code scans, website visits. Who is visiting your resources? Who's looking at your page? When you have a program, getting that data from program participants. What is your age? Where do they live? And that's all voluntary information. You ask people, hey, would you like to fill out some information, get an idea of who's coming to the program, who we're reaching? A lot of people will provide that information. I mean, it's not required, of course, but if people want to provide it, that's more data you have to say, who am I reaching? And that's also a way you can tell, were any demographics missed? You get to the end of the project and you realize I didn't have a single presentation attendee under the age of 25. Why? Was I not promoting it in a place where young people would see it? Was I not hosting it in a place that was accessible for young people to show up? Maybe I should have gone to a high school. Maybe I should have reached out to teachers and connected that way. We should have pushed harder on social media and see, how do you plan to address that going forward? One is, was your outreach approach, equitable? And then also, how are you going to make it better if it wasn't? And then finally, figuring out, was your outreach effective in the overall goal? The goal of this outreach is to reduce non-point source pollution. And how are you going to figure out if that was effective? Pre and post outreach surveys. Send that survey that we were talking about earlier. What do you do? What habits do you do? How much are you aware of certain actions? Now you send a follow-up. Now that you've learned about this, now what do you think? Now, which of these activities are you aware of? Now, what habits are you doing? Was there any change? And then program feedback and evaluations. Um, Again, voluntary information supplied by the people that go to your programs. Um, how do you feel that this has impacted you? What are you taking away from this? Were we effective in communicating this message? Um, and so I think it's very important to include steps to evaluate your outreach as part of an overall outreach or education campaign. And that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for joining me here. And if you have any questions on anything I mentioned today or about outreach in general, education, feel free to reach out to me. My email is olivia@pomperaug.org. And you can also call our office here at 203-263-0076. So thank you guys so much. It was great being here, and good luck with your projects.